What? Wow. That's so harsh. Yes, it is. No book is gonna work for everybody. It just doesn't work like that. There's no book that everybody agrees is an amazing 5-star read. No matter what your favorite book is, there will be somebody out there who doesn't like it. And everybody is entitled to their own opinions. But today, we will be looking at some wrong opinions. Murphy Napier did a really entertaining video where she reacted to 1-star reviews to her favorite books of 2023. And I thought, I want to see what people think. I want to see their terrible, incorrect opinions. So today, we're looking at some 1-star reviews for some books that don't deserve 1-star reviews. And yes, I will continue to be this petty throughout the entire video. Your opinion's just wrong, but that's okay. I thought we would start off strong with my favorite book of 2023, which was Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now this will be interesting because I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like this series. The humor is very individualized and it does a lot of bizarre, weird things, so I'm not surprised that there is some 1-stars. However, we'll find out why they are rating them 1-stars. DNF at 18%, 2.5 hours in. It's so stupid. Maybe good for 10 or 12-year-olds. I don't know. Right. It's meant to be stupid. That's the point. That's the point. We like the stupid here. The stupid is good. I was an edgy teenager once. Come on, man. That's harsh. And incorrect. Okay, here's a big one. This book was recommended to me. I can't do the same for others. It's essentially a first-person description of a video game dungeon crawler. I know, the title, right? Including the description of items gained along the way, and that's it. And that's it? Dude, is this a DNF? I don't think so. Let's continue on. There's some humor, but it's basically thin banter. What? What? There's so much humor in that first book. It's the most joke-filled book I think I've ever read. Plot-driven narrative will satisfy most teen to early 20-something males. And I admit I read it until the end, so that isn't meant to be as arrogant as it sounds, but the writing is almost unforgivable. If you're looking for anything of substance, give it a pass. Ouch, dude. Okay, it's essentially a first-person description of a video game dungeon crawler, including the description of items gained along the way. And that's it. There is so much more to this story. What? There's... In that first book, you do just kind of get the start of this larger political story. So I get that perhaps if you're looking for more of that style of story, then yeah, that first book doesn't have a lot of it. But as the series goes on, it gets more prevalent in the narrative. Nothing of substance, come on. Oh boy, DNF 50%. How is it possible that this book has a 4.5 rating here? Unless all 15,000 who rated it are boys around 12 years old. It is literally like reading about someone playing a mediocre game. Honestly, there's so much better content on YouTube. Dad! The narrator on Audible sounds like he's trying to do an impression of Krunk from the Emperor's New Groove. It's awful. Book could be absolutely fantastic for all I know, but the narration is the worst I've ever heard. I get it. I must say, I went in and I listened to this sample of Dungeon Crawler Carl, and he does have a very distinct voice. And I listened to the sample and I was like, ooh, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this. It just feels like a lot. It feels like a very strong individual voice. Is that going to become too grating? But it was less than an hour into the audiobook and I was completely sold on Jeff Hayes, who is the audiobook narrator, and he's super talented. And as I said in my video about Dungeon Crawler Carl, the audiobook is definitely the way to go. Narration voices is just one of those things some people won't like, but Krunk from Emperor's New Groove. Okay, we survived that. That was not too painful. Next, we will look at Network Effect, the fifth book in the Murderbot Diaries. What's interesting about this one is it is the 5th book, so you would assume the people who are rating this 1-star enjoyed the first 4, so I'll be interested what put them off in the 5th book that didn't put them off in the first 4. This is difficult. I love the Murderbot novels 1 to 4. I did not give 5 stars lightly, and for all 4 books I gave 5 stars. But this book, what a disappointment. Endless hypothetical reflecting, talking, arguing, and problem solving. This went on and on and on, and only in the head of Murderbot and his teammates. Who else is there? The whole story wasn't a fascinating adventure, but a boring, tedious narrative made out of 100,000 outer space terms. I was devastated about this novel. What a disgrace for Murderbot. Oh! Oh! That's 2 that have talked about this more talking, reflective section in the full-length novel, so I'm wondering if it's more of a pacing change when you're used to the shorter, faster adventures of the novellas, and then this book does slow down and take longer scenes with Murderbot developing as a character. So perhaps people are going in expecting it to be the very action-packed, back-to-back adventure that you get with the novellas. DNF, what the heck was this? I listened to the first 3 chapters and had no idea what was going on. No backstory, nothing. How long was I supposed to read this before the author let me in on this world? I knew it was about a Murderbot, but it was like I was thrown into a world I knew nothing about. How did this get such a good rating? I'm guessing this person hasn't read the novellas. I will say that the book does kind of just throw you in the middle of the plot, and you're kind of piecing in the backstory between the novella before and the full-length novel. That is kind of the structure of the book. But if you've not read any of the novellas, it's going to be quite confusing. However, it does say Murderbot Diaries Book 5 on Goodreads that this rating is on. What? You know what? DNF is boring and ridiculous. Let's talk about our feelings. That's not Murderbot. Yes, it is. It's Snowflake Bot with Teenager Appendix. It feels like I'm reading a YA novel. There was some action at 30%, but since then, boring, woke jabbering, not to mention these names again. Gosh, this book was expendable and a waste of time. Disappointing. What? Oh man, that's really funny. I know, I've no notes. I agree. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's look at Uzumaki. I want to see the 1-star reviews for Uzumaki. I think that would be really funny because that is a bizarre book. I really enjoyed it. I loved it, but it's a weird book. I hated this book so much I can't even write about it. Okay. What can I say? And then there is not much going on for this manga in my opinion. It seems horrific just to be so, and that in my case is not enough justification for the images I saw. Perhaps the problem is I binged it over a weekend, but hey, I don't care. That's enough of that. This one I get. It does feel just like event after event. It is very episodic with the chapters. I just thought this was funny because it wasn't enough justification for the images I saw. Just have this image of someone, this was not worth the images. Let's look at some 1-stars for Assassin's Apprentice. Now this one, yeah, is a book that a lot of people won't like. It's very character-led, the pacing's pretty slow, and it does feel like the prologue to a larger story, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I really enjoyed Assassin's Apprentice. But let's see what the people have to say. I don't care for this series at all. The bad guy is so bad, stomping around, twirling his virtual Sydney Whiplash mustache, sneering and jeering and literally kicking puppies. And yet the supposed wise mentor in the book keeps insisting mysteriously that there is more to him that meets the eye. Well, guess what? There isn't. He's just as bad as he seems, and that pretty much saves you the trouble of reading the whole book right there. I mean, they're not wrong. To be fair, the villain is a mustache-twirling, puppy-kicking villain who's just a bad guy. There isn't a whole lot to his character other than that. Just murdered. I'm gonna blank it out. This book, I'm out. Yeah, that's fair. I would did that point as well if I had any sense. I didn't have any sense. The showdown. There is so much wrong with this trilogy. All other trilogies too. This series. The way the author told the story. I hate what she did with the second trilogy. I hate the way she paths certain characteristics and romances that belong in the fiery pits of hell. I hate it so much that I can't even write it down. This was everything I hated about other high fantasy books, but a million times worse. Yes, totally slander your main character. Yes, add a bunch of unnecessary, ridiculous characters that should not exist by any means to give him more purpose. As if the guy didn't hang around doing nothing 24/7 and sometimes goes on missions. I didn't see any strong female characters. I saw stereotypes and them getting sidestepped to support the men's story arc. I thought hard and long, very long, how to rate this because it has been a while since I read it, but it still burns to the point where I can't even formulate coherent thoughts. This could have been something, but it is nothing because the author is sick in the head. God. Whoa, it's not even done. There's a spot in hell just for this book. Wow. That's so harsh. This is quite a big review, and a lot of it's just I hated it. There's so much wrong with this trilogy and all other trilogies too in this series, I'm guessing is what that means. And the way the author told the story. So you read multiple trilogies in this series that you really had this opinion of? What? Every decade I try to read this, I'll try again next decade. Why? If you really don't like it. Next up, we will look at Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Now, this was my favorite of the 4 secret projects. It's another case where I can see why people won't like it. It does have that sort of awkward young relationship vibes with the 2 main characters. But I do think that this story is really interesting in the way that it talks about art and this sort of dual narrative and how they weave together with their stories and their personalities, the 2 main characters. I thought it was a really good story, so let's find out why people hated it. The art is its only positive thing. The art is beautiful though. This is an awful book. When I'm reading fantasy, I normally don't really care for the romance aspects of it. Often because they feel tacky or not well done, but this was done awfully. I was frowning at all of Yumi and Nikaro's interactions and rooting for them to fall out of love. It was great. What? The fantasy aspect was bad. Oh, what? All the twists were poorly telegraphed, so they felt cheap and it was awful. I don't recommend this to anyone, fantasy reader or not. It was horrid. Rooting for them to fall out of love. It was great. And that'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. This was interesting. Please remember that these are just jokes. If you don't like a book that someone else does like, that doesn't mean your opinion is wrong, unless it's with me. Again, that's a joke. I need to stop. One of the best things about the fantasy genre is the amount of nuance and creativity. It really is such an expansive genre, and the range really is huge. And a huge thank you to my patrons who keep this channel alive. Over there is bonus videos, writing snippets of whatever I'm working on, and you also get to pick what books and then vote on what we read for the monthly book club. So thank you again, your support is huge. But thank you very much for watching. Outro. Oh boy. I had a good time though, that was fun, that was good. I think.